Right now, across the country, thousands of homes and, ancient trees are just being silently ripped apart.
Yeah, completely dismantled.
And the crazy part is, the culprit isn't some Gulf Coast hurricane or termite colony. It isn't a sinkhole. It is that beautiful, romantic, deep green ivy crawling up the side of the house.
Right, the stuff everyone loves.
Exactly. You know the image. When you picture the quintessential historic home or a classic garden wall, that lush greenery climbing the brickwork is like the ultimate symbol of established curb appeal.
Oh, absolutely. It's on all the postcards.
But today, we're taking you on a mission to look right past that beautiful surface. We're going to uncover how that beloved landscaping feature is actually a hidden structural menace.
It really might be one of the most perfect disguises in the natural world. I mean, we are so deeply conditioned to view vibrant greenery as healthy and desirable, right?
Right, green equals good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we completely miss the microscopic, relentless warfare happening right underneath those leaves.
And our source for today's deep dive breaks down that warfare in incredible detail. We're looking at a comprehensive guide from Tree Service Palmetto LFL, based in Palmetto, Florida.
A really fascinating breakdown.
It is. It's titled Managing Invasive Vines, the Importance of Professional Ivy Removal for Palmetto Homeowners.
And honestly, what they outline completely shattered my perception of landscaping.
I'm not surprised it changes how you look at the neighborhood.
Totally. You might look out the window and just see an attractive green accent on your siding, but this guide reveals how that very same greenery is an aggressive, suffocating invader.
Capable of a shocking amount of destruction.
Yes, we're talking about an organism capable of shattering solid brick, rotting away wooden structures, and quietly assassinating massive native trees. Okay, let's unpack this. How does something that looks so harmless and pretty cause so much panic for structural experts?
What's fascinating here is the biology of the invasion, specifically the mechanisms these vines use to attach themselves. You have to factor in the environment, right?
Like the weather down south? Yeah, Florida's incredibly warm, humid climate acts as a literal steroid for aggressive vegetation. It allows it to thrive and spread year-round. But these vines don't just, lean against a house and grow upward.
Right.
They actively, chemically anchor themselves. The ivy's aerial roots actually secrete a specialized biological adhesive.
Wait, so they're essentially manufacturing their own glue to stick to the brick.
A highly complex glue, yeah. It's a mix of glycoproteins that bind the roots firmly to whatever surface they touch.
Wow.
And once they're cemented in place, those roots seek out the path of least resistance. So on a brick house, that means finding the microscopic pores and hairline cracks in the mortar.
Right, because they don't just stay on the surface. But how does a soft green plant root actually break down hardened mortar and baked clay? It doesn't seem strong enough.
It comes down to hydraulic pressure. As the plant absorbs water and nutrients, the cells within those tiny root fibers swell.
Oh, I see where this is going.
Yeah. Because the root is trapped inside a microscopic crack in the mortar, that cellular swelling exerts an immense amount of outward mechanical force.
So as the root grows and thickens over the months, it acts like a slow-motion wedge.
Exactly. It continuously widens those cracks, literally pushing the solid masonry apart. And if the ivy is climbing wood siding instead of brick, those same roots will force their way under the overlapping boards.
Expanding when wet. Yeah.
Got it. And that severely warps the wooden panels completely away from the frame of the house.
Man, it sounds like you're describing the ultimate toxic roommate.
That's one way to put it.
No, think about it. They look absolutely great on Instagram, so everyone visiting thinks you have this amazing aesthetic setup. But secretly, they are actively destroying your house from the inside out. They never clean up after themselves. And bringing in another wild detail from the Palmetto Guide, they invite a bunch of snakes and rodents to live in the walls with you.
Yeah, the pest factor is a massive component of the hazard. I mean, that dense, overlapping blanket of ivy leaves doesn't just look nice. It alters the microclimate against the side of your house.
By trapping the air.
Right. It blocks out the wind and the sun, creating this permanently shaded, moisture-rich environment. That thick ground cover and wall cover acts as a 5-star hotel for pests.
Because it's giving them everything they need to survive right up against your foundation.
Exactly. It provides them with thermal regulation, cover from natural predators like hawks or owls, and shelter from the elements. But more alarmingly, a thick vine structure acts as a direct, hidden highway.
A highway for what?
Rodents, snakes, damaging insects, they can travel completely undetected straight up the side of your home. It gives them super easy access to your windows, your attic vents, and your roof line.
That is deeply unsettling. And while the pests are using it as a ladder, the moisture trapped by those leaves is doing its own damage, right?
Oh, definitely.
Because the sun can't reach the siding to dry it out. So you just have this constant dampness pressed against your foundation. The guide actually points out that this leads directly to aggressive mold growth and severe wood rot.
Yeah, the trifecta of damage.
So your house is literally being wedged apart by hydraulic roots, rotted by trapped moisture, and invaded by rodents.
And that combination is what turns a simple cosmetic feature into a full-blown structural crisis.
Right. Okay, so we've established this stuff can pull apart baked clay and mortar. If it can do that to an inert structure like a house, what on earth is it doing to a living, breathing tree in the yard?
It's just as bad, if not worse.
I have to pause and challenge this a bit, though. Isn't this just nature doing its thing?
Yeah.
I mean, trees and vines have coexisted in forests for millions of years. Why does a vine climbing a 50-foot oak tree suddenly escalate from basic landscaping into a, high-risk hazard mitigation scenario?
That's a really vital question. The distinction lies between a native symbiotic relationship and the behavior of aggressive, invasive species.
Ah, okay. The invasive part is key.
Exactly. A lot of the vines homeowners deal with are not native to the local ecosystem, so they totally lack natural checks and balances. When they establish themselves at the base of a tree, they become entirely parasitic.
So they're feeding off the tree.
They start by ruthlessly competing with the tree's own root system for essential soil nutrients and water.
Wow, so the tree is already being starved from the ground up before the vine even starts climbing.
Yep. And then the climbing begins. Arborists actually refer to this phase as the race to the canopy.
The race to the canopy.
Right. An oak tree spends decades, sometimes centuries, expending massive amounts of biological energy to build a thick, sturdy trunk just to reach the sunlight. The invasive ivy just free rides on that architecture.
It doesn't have to build anything itself.
Exactly. It doesn't need to build structural wood. It just uses the tree's trunk as a highway to sprint to the top.
And once it gets up there, it doesn't just, share the space. The guide describes how it aggressively spreads its own leaves wide across the top of the tree's canopy.
It essentially deploys an umbrella over the host.
An umbrella.
Yeah, by spreading a dense layer of foliage over the tree's uppermost branches, the ivy intercepts the sunlight. The host tree is suddenly blocked from gathering the solar energy it desperately needs for photosynthesis.
So it is slowly starved to death from above.
And just like with the house siding, the ivy is trapping that suffocating moisture against the living tree bark down below.
Which is bad for the bark, obviously.
Really bad. The bark is a tree's primary immune system. It protects the phloem, the vascular tissue that transports nutrients up and down the trunk.
Okay.
So the constant moisture trapped by the dense ivy accelerates fungal growth and bark rot. Once that protective barrier decays, the core of the tree is fully exposed to disease and insect boring. The structural integrity of the wood just begins to fail.
Which brings us to the physical danger. The guide emphasizes that a mature ivy colony is shockingly heavy. We aren't talking about a few delicate leaves fluttering in the breeze here.
Not at all. We are talking about thousands of pounds of thick, woody cables holding massive amounts of wet foliage.
Put that massive weight high up in the canopy of a tree during a severe weather event, and the physics become terrifying. The guide calls it the sail effect.
It's a major cause of property damage.
I always assumed a tree with more leaves would just stand strong, but the guide points out that a healthy tree actually allows heavy wind to pass through its branches.
Right. A healthy canopy is aerodynamic. When intense Gulf Coast winds hit, the branches flex and the wind just passes right through the gaps.
Making it safe.
Yeah, but an ivy-choked canopy is a solid, impenetrable wall of vegetation. It catches the wind exactly like a giant ship sail.
Ooh.
Instead of the kinetic energy passing through, it transfers directly into the trunk of the tree. When you combine the aerodynamic drag of that sail with thousands of pounds of extra weight acting as a lever at the top of a rotting trunk.
The risk of massive branch failure or total catastrophic trunk collapse skyrocket.
Exactly. It's a recipe for a fallen tree.
The most sinister part of this entire process is how invisible it is to the average person. I mean, you could be looking out your kitchen window, admiring this massive, vibrant green tree in your front yard, feeling totally secure.
Totally oblivious to what's happening.
Right. But under that thick blanket of ivy, the tree is already dead. It might be totally hollowed out by rock, completely devoid of a single leaf of its own, and leaning dangerously towards your roofline or the neighborhood power grid. The green you see is just the ivy holding up the corpse.
It's incredibly deceptive. The aesthetic beauty creates a profound false sense of security. The tree is reduced to a hollowed-out skeleton supporting its own murderer.
Wow, supporting its own murderer. Okay, so let's say a homeowner finally notices this. Maybe they pull back a thick vine near the trunk and they see the crumbling rot, or they realize the leaves at the top don't actually look like oak leaves.
Panic sets in.
Yet the immediate visceral human instinct is to run to the garage, grab some heavy-duty shears, pull out a ladder, and wage war on the ivy. But the Palmetto Guide is incredibly explicit about why this DIY weekend warrior instinct is not just ineffective, but actively disastrous.
Oh, absolutely. If we connect this to the bigger picture, attempting to dismantle a dead, vine-entangled tree is one of the most unpredictable and complex operations in all of arboriculture.
So not just pruning.
No, you have to shift your mindset. This is no longer weekend yard work. It is high-risk structural demolition. A tree that has been strangled, rotted, and compromised requires rigorous professional expertise, specialized rigging equipment, and often heavy machinery to dismantle safely without just crushing the house next to it.
And the guide specifically mentions the unique physics of cutting down a vine-bound tree. I want to try and visualize this. It says woody vines hold severed branches in place, causing unpredictable swings.
It's incredibly dangerous.
It sounds exactly like a loaded spring, or like a massive, unpredictable rubber band stretched to its absolute limit, just waiting to snap.
The rubber band analogy captures the kinetic danger perfectly. In a normal tree removal, an arborist makes a strategic cut, and gravity dictates exactly where that branch will fall.
Right, it drops straight down.
But in an ivy-choked canopy, those thick, woody vines have grown over and around the branches for years. They act like high-tension suspension cables. You can take a chainsaw and cut entirely through a 1,000-pound branch, and it simply won't drop.
Wait, it just hangs there.
It remains suspended in midair, held tight by the vines.
So you essentially have no idea what is actually supporting the weight.
None. And because the tree has been swaying in the wind for years, those vines have immense kinetic tension built up inside them.
Oh, man.
If a homeowner climbs up a ladder and cuts the wrong vine trying to free that suspended branch, the sudden, violent release of potential energy can cause the massive branch to swing back like a pendulum.
Crushing whatever is in its path.
Or the tension vine itself can snap back with the force of a bullwhip, striking the person holding the saw and causing severe blunt force trauma or a fatal fall right from the ladder.
The structural danger of dismantling the canopy is terrifying enough on its own. But the DIY approach fails on basically every other metric too, right?
Pretty much all of them.
Even just trying to clear a yard or pull vines off a low brick wall is a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, the first failure point is root eradication. If you just pull the green vines you can see above ground, you are inevitably leaving the deep, established root systems completely intact.
It'll just grow back.
These invasive plants evolve to survive trauma. Leaving the root systems guarantees rapid, aggressive regrowth, and the new shoots often come back thicker and more resilient than before.
Then there is the invisible biological hazard. We aren't just talking about pulled muscles or falls here. The guide issues a major warning about toxic plant exposure.
This is a critical safety hazard. Invasive vines rarely grow in isolation. They are frequently tangled up with highly toxic varieties like poison oak or poison ivy.
Just hiding in the mix.
Exactly. The sap inside these plants contains urushiol oil. If a homeowner wades into a dense thicket with a weed whacker or a machete, they aren't just cutting the plant, they are aerosolizing that toxic oil.
So you aren't just getting a rash on your arm, you could be actively breathing it in.
Breathing it in, getting it in your eyes, or absorbing massive doses through the skin. Treating those areas requires specific hazardous materials protocols. A blind DIY attack can easily lead to severe systemic allergic reactions that require emergency hospitalization.
Good grief. And even if you miraculously avoid the snapback, the falls, and the toxic oil, you're probably going to destroy your own house in the process.
Oh, definitely.
We talked earlier about how that biological glue wedges roots into the mortar and under the siding. If you grab a thick vine and aggressively try to rip it off your exterior wall with brute force, the J-channel, the gutters, the loose mortar, and the paint are coming down with it.
You end up doing the destruction for the plant. Ripping live, fully anchored vines causes immense mechanical damage to whatever host they are attached to. Tearing the protective bark right off a tree or stripping the siding off a home.
And you still have to clean it up.
Right. Finally, if you do manage to drag it all down, you are left with mountains of heavy, wet, pest-infested debris. Proper disposal requires renting vehicles and making multiple heavy trips to the landfill, whereas a professional crew handles all the chipping, hauling, and site cleanup as part of the initial project scope.
So if ripping the vines off the wall destroys the exterior of your house, and cutting the tree down could trigger a lethal physics experiment with a chainsaw, what is the actual solution?
It requires a completely different approach.
Well, here's where it gets really interesting. Because the method the professional arborists use is incredibly counterintuitive.
It relies entirely on patience and biology rather than brute force. Effective removal is a methodical scientific process. It always begins with a comprehensive site assessment.
To see what they're up against.
Right. Technicians evaluate the specific species of the vine to identify toxic hazards, and they assess the architectural scale of the infestation.
And the scale dictates the whole approach, right? Because carefully peeling ivy off a single-story brick wall is a completely different logistical universe than addressing a mature oak tree canopy 50 feet in the air over a power line.
Absolutely. The logistics, the specialized rigging, and the labor required scale drastically based on height and location. But regardless of whether it's a wall or a massive tree, the core of the professional strategy is a brilliant technique known as the window cut.
I love the logic behind the window cutting. It reminds me of a medieval siege.
Oh, that's a great way to look at it.
Yeah, instead of charging the castle walls, taking heavy casualties, and destroying the fortress you're trying to save, you just find the enemy's supply lines, cut them off, and wait them out.
That is the exact biological mechanism at play. Instead of trying to rip everything down from the precarious canopy, arborists stay safely on the ground. They locate the thick, primary vine stems at the base of the tree or wall.
The supply lines.
Yes, the umbilical cord supplying water and nutrients from the soil to the massive vegetative structure above. They don't just make a single slice. They sever a wide section of the stem, usually a few feet long. They create a literal gap or a window in the trunk of the vine,
Ensuring the upper and lower sections are completely physically disconnected. And then they just walk away.
Yep. They leave the entire upper section of the ivy firmly anchored in the high branches or stuck to the wall.
They intentionally leave it in place. Because remember, as we discussed, ripping live, swollen roots causes catastrophic mechanical damage.
Right. By severing the main stem, the vines left in the canopy are instantly deprived of their water supply.
What does that biological timeline look like? Like, how long does it take for a massive vine colony to realize it's been cut off from the earth?
The initial phase happens surprisingly fast. In Florida's warm environment, transpiration, the process of water evaporating from the leaves, continues rapidly.
But there's no water to replace it.
Exactly. Since the supply line is cut, no new water is coming up. The plant literally sucks itself dry. The vibrant green foliage will typically wilt, turn brown, and die within 1 to 2 months. The organism starves.
Okay, but what about the vines themselves?
However, the woody structural stems and that stubborn biological glue, the glycoprotein adhesive we discussed earlier, take much longer to break down.
Because the glue is still physically cemented into the microscopic cracks, even though the plant is dead.
Correct. It can take several months for a natural enzymatic breakdown to occur. Fungi and bacteria in the environment slowly degrade the organic adhesive.
But that patience is the secret to the whole operation. Because once the vine is completely dead and the biological grip naturally weakens through decay, you don't have to rip or tear anything.
The problem essentially solves itself. Once the adhesive decays, the dead, brittle vines often just fall away harmlessly in the next windstorm.
That is amazing.
And whatever remains can be gently brushed off without causing a single scratch to the delicate tree bark or the home's exterior surface. You preserve the total integrity of the underlying structure by just letting nature do the demolition work.
It is such an elegant solution to such an aggressive problem. But the job isn't quite finished just because the canopy is dead and falling away, right?
Right?
The professionals still have to deal with the fortress underground.
Oh, absolutely. The ground-level root system must be systematically dismantled. If you just leave the severed stump of the vine sitting in the soil, the intact root network will rapidly deploy leftover energy to sprout new runners.
And the invasion begins all over again.
Exactly. So professionals meticulously excavate the surrounding soil or apply highly targeted, environmentally safe suppression treatments to neutralize the root system and guarantee the ivy does not return.
It truly is a full tactical operation. We started today looking at what seemed like a classic, picturesque green vine on a garden wall. But peeling back the leaves, we discovered its glue-like hydraulic power to shatter solid brick and warp wood.
A total menace.
We uncovered its suffocating parasitic nature and the terrifying physics of how it acts as a massive heavy sail capable of bringing down ancient native trees in a storm.
Hmm.
And most importantly, we learned why DIY brute force is a recipe for injury and destruction,
It really is.
and why patience and a strategic window cut are the only safe scientific ways to defeat it. You know, true knowledge really does mean looking past the surface aesthetics to understand the invisible structural mechanics of the world around us.
It absolutely does. And this raises an important question to consider long after this discussion ends.
Oh, what's that?
Well, if a seemingly beautiful, harmless plant can orchestrate such a slow, silent, and complete takeover of a massive oak tree or a solid brick home right under our noses, what other slow-moving structural threats might be hiding in plain sight in our daily environments, masquerading as something beneficial or beautiful?
Oof, that is definitely a thought to chew on next time you're out taking a walk in the neighborhood for sure.
Yeah.
Keep your eyes open, look a little closer at the world around you, and as always, stay curious.